The space station called Helix 9 floated in the empty darkness between three star systems. It belonged to no one and everyone at the same time. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at its ports every day. Some came to trade, some came to hide, but once every 5 years, they came to fight. The galactic combat trials had been running for almost 1,000 years. Warriors from across known space traveled here to test themselves against the best fighters the galaxy had to offer. There were rules, of course. No weapons, no armor that could kill, but beyond that, anything was permitted. And sometimes, fighters died anyway. Commander Vela stood at the viewing window of her ship and watched the station grow larger as they approached. She was tall by any standard, standing 7 feet from the ground to the top of her smooth, hairless head. Her skin was the color of deep ocean water, and it seemed to shimmer when the light touched it. She had 4 arms, each one ending in hands with 6 long fingers. Her eyes were large and completely black, like pools of ink set into her angular face. She was Rethian. Her people had won the combat trials for 300 years without fail. They were stronger than most species, faster than nearly all, and they possessed the gift of mental sight. A Rethian warrior could sense an opponent's next move before it happened. They could push fear into enemy minds. They were, by most measurements, the perfect fighters, and Vela was the best of them. She had won 47 matches in her career. 12 of her opponents had died in the arena, though she had not intended to kill most of them. They had simply been too weak to survive her attacks. She felt no guilt about this. Combat was combat. The weak fell. The strong remained. Her assistant, a younger Rethian named Pola, approached with a data screen in her upper hands. "Commander, the bracket has been released. You will fight in the opening round." Vela did not turn from the window. "Who is my opponent?" "A human, from the planet called Earth." Now Vela turned. Her black eyes showed something that might have been amusement. "A human? They sent a human to face me?" "It appears so, Commander. His name is Tejo. He has military experience, but no record in galactic competition." Vela made a sound that her people used to express disbelief. It was something like a laugh but sharper. "The humans must be desperate for attention. They are sending their warriors to be destroyed so that people will notice them." She had seen humans before, of course. They were common enough in the galaxy now, spreading out from their small blue world like insects from a broken nest. They were unremarkable in almost every way. Average height, average strength, no natural weapons, no psychic abilities, no special senses. They could not see in the dark or hear sounds beyond a narrow range. Their skin was soft and tore easily. Their bones broke without much effort. The only interesting thing about humans, Vela thought, was how they had managed to survive at all. Their homeworld was not particularly dangerous. Their bodies were not particularly durable. Yet somehow, they had crawled out of their caves, built ships, and joined the galactic community. It was almost impressive, in the way that a small animal, learning a simple trick, might be impressive, but impressive enough to fight in the combat trials? No. This was foolishness. The docking process took another hour. Vela used the time to stretch and prepare her mind. She ran through the mental exercises her teachers had given her as a child. She felt her psychic awareness expand, touching the minds of her crew members, sensing their loyalty and focus. Everything was as it should be. When she finally walked through the station's corridors toward the registration hall, other species moved out of her way. They knew who she was. They knew what she could do. A group of Telvan traders pressed themselves against the wall as she passed. A Mordian diplomat bowed his heavy head in respect. Even a Krix warrior, a species known for their own fighting ability, stepped aside and would not meet her eyes. This was proper. This was how things should be. The registration hall was a massive circular room with a domed ceiling that showed the stars outside. Representatives from dozens of species filled the space, their translators working overtime to convert the chaos of languages into something understandable. Vela's own translator implant fed her the words automatically. She found her assigned area and began the registration process. It was tedious but necessary. medical scans, confirmation of identity, agreement to the rules. She completed each step with the patience of someone who had done this many times before. She was nearly finished when she heard a commotion near the entrance. She turned to look and saw a small group of humans entering the hall. There were perhaps 10 of them, wearing simple gray uniforms without decoration. They looked around at the gathered aliens with expressions that mixed curiosity and caution. Vela studied them with her normal eyes and her mental sight at the same time. Their thoughts were surprisingly quiet. Not blocked, just calm, focused, like still water. One human caught her attention more than the others. He was not the tallest of the group, not the most muscular. In fact, he was quite ordinary looking. His hair was black and cut short. His skin was a light brown color. His eyes were dark and steady. He moved through the crowd without rushing, without hesitation. There was something in the way he carried himself. Not arrogance. Not fear. Something else. A female human walked beside him, speaking quietly in their language. The translator caught fragments of their conversation. Certain about this, Tejo? She has killed 12 opponents. The man called Tejo nodded slowly. I have faced worse odds. Vela felt her interest rise slightly. This was her opponent. This small, soft creature believed he had faced worse odds than fighting her. The thought was almost amusing enough to make her laugh again. She reached out with her mental gift and touched his mind, just lightly. Just enough to taste his thoughts. She expected to find fear, hidden beneath the calm surface. All prey animals felt fear when predators were near, even if they tried to hide it. But what she found was different. His mind was like an empty room. Not empty of thought, but empty of clutter. Everything unnecessary had been cleared away. There was only focus, only readiness, only patience. It was unusual, but it did not matter. Mental calm would not help him when her fists struck his fragile body. Mental focus would not repair his broken bones. He would fall like all the others had fallen, perhaps faster, given how weak his species was. Vela turned back to complete her registration. The human was not worth more of her attention. Tomorrow, she would show the galaxy once again why the Rethians were the supreme warriors of known space. And this Tejo would simply be another name on her list of victories. She did not know, could not know, how wrong she was. The arena was built to hold 50,000 spectators. And every seat was filled. Beings from across the galaxy had come to watch the combat trials, and the opening match featured the defending champion. Giant screens floated above the fighting floor, ready to capture every moment and broadcast it to billions of viewers across known space. Tejo stood in the waiting area beneath the arena floor. He could hear the crowd above him, a constant rumble of alien voices speaking in languages he could not understand without his translator. The sound was like distant thunder that never stopped. Yuna stood beside him. She was the delegation's translator, but she had become something like a friend during the long journey from Earth. Her face showed the worry she was trying to hide. The betting odds are 200 to 1 against you, she said quietly. Everyone expects you to lose. Tejo stretched his arms slowly, warming the muscles. Good. Low expectations are useful. This is not a joke, Tejo. She has killed people in this arena. Strong people. Warriors from species much more powerful than us. He looked at her with those steady dark eyes. I know. I read the reports. Then why are you so calm? Tejo considered the question for a moment. How could he explain it to her? He had been a soldier for 15 years. He had fought in the Battle of Europa Station, where his entire squad had died around him, and he had held a corridor alone for 11 hours until rescue arrived. He had been shot, stabbed, burned, and broken more times than he could remember. He had seen friends die in his arms. He had killed enemies who begged for mercy. Fear was not something he had forgotten. He simply had no room left for it. I am calm because being afraid will not help me, he finally said. Fear uses energy. I will need all my energy for the fight. A signal light turned green above the entrance ramp. It was time. Yuna grabbed his arm. Come back alive, please. He nodded once, then walked up the ramp toward the light. The noise hit him like a physical force when he emerged into the arena. The crowd was massive, a sea of alien faces in every color and shape imaginable. Many were cheering, though not for him. They were excited to see their champion perform. They were excited to see a human broken. Taeho walked to the center of the fighting floor and waited. He did not wave to the crowd or make any gestures. He simply stood and breathed and let his mind settle into that empty, focused state that had kept him alive through so many battles. On the opposite side of the arena, a door opened, and Commander Vela emerged. The crowd's cheering doubled in volume. Vela was magnificent and terrifying at the same time. She wore tight fighting clothes that left her forearms free to move. Her blue skin seemed to glow under the arena lights. She walked toward the center with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. An announcer's voice boomed through the speakers, translating into 100 languages simultaneously. It listed Vela's achievements: 47 victories, 300 years of Rethian dominance. The crowd cheered at each accomplishment. Then it introduced Taeho, a human from Earth, first galactic competition. No notable achievements. Some in the crowd laughed. Others simply looked confused. Why was this small, soft creature here? What could he possibly hope to accomplish? Vela stopped 10 feet away from Taeho. She looked down at him with those completely black eyes. You should not be here. Small one. You will be hurt badly. Perhaps killed. Taeho met her gaze without flinching. Perhaps. Something flickered across her face. Annoyance. Maybe. She had expected fear. She had expected begging or bravado. This simple acceptance was not what she wanted. A tone sounded. The fight began. Vela attacked immediately, all four arms moving in a blur of motion. Her upper right fist aimed for his head while her lower arms swept toward his body. It was a combination that had ended many fights in seconds, but Taeho was not there. He had moved the moment the tone sounded, sliding to his left just enough that her strikes passed through empty air. It was not a dramatic dodge. He had not jumped, or rolled, or done anything impressive. He had simply shifted. Vela spun and attacked again. Her speed was incredible, her arms moving in patterns that seemed impossible to track. A normal opponent would have been overwhelmed immediately. Taeho was not normal. He moved with an economy that came from years of training. He did not waste energy on large movements. He did not retreat more than necessary. He slipped her attacks by centimeters, letting her fists pass close enough that he could feel the wind of their passage. She was faster than him. Much faster. But speed meant nothing if you could not hit your target. Vela reached out with her mental gift, trying to read his next movement. What she found surprised her. His mind was still that same empty room she had sensed before. There was no plan to read, because he was not planning. He was simply reacting, moment to moment, with a focus so pure that her psychic abilities could find nothing to grab onto. Frustrated, she increased her attack speed. Her four hearts pumped hard, sending blood rushing through her body, fueling her muscles for maximum performance. She landed a blow to his ribs. The sound of impact was satisfying. Taeho grunted and staggered backward. She pressed forward, landing another strike to his shoulder, another to his leg. He was bleeding now. The soft human skin had torn where her knuckles had struck. Red blood, so different from her own blue, dripped onto the arena floor, yet he did not fall. Vela struck him again. And again. Each blow landed with the force that had broken the bones of much stronger species. Each blow should have sent him to the ground. He absorbed them. He bent with the impacts. He let his body move with the force, rather than against it. And he kept his feet. 3 minutes passed. Then 4. Vela had never had a fight last this long. Her opponents usually fell within the first minute, 2 minutes at most. She stepped back, breathing harder than she expected. The human stood before her, bloodied and battered, one arm hanging in a way that suggested something was wrong inside. But his eyes were still clear, still calm, still watching her with that patient focus. For the first time in her career, Vela felt a small seed of something she did not recognize growing in her chest. Much later, she would understand that the feeling was doubt. The crowd had grown quiet. They had come to see a quick victory, an entertaining destruction of a lesser species. Instead, they were watching something they did not understand. A human was still standing, and the fight was just beginning. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 15. The arena had never been so quiet during a fight. 50,000 beings watched in confused silence as the impossible continued to happen. A human, bleeding from a dozen wounds, bones clearly damaged, body battered beyond what should be survivable, refused to fall. In the medical observation room above the arena, doctors from 6 different species monitored the fight with growing disbelief. Their screens showed Tejo's vital signs in real time. "This makes no sense," said a Telvan physician, his long fingers dancing across his console. "His body has sustained damage that would incapacitate a Mordian. His pain levels must be extreme. Why is he still fighting?" Quote, a Krix combat medic leaned forward, studying the data with narrowed eyes. "His heart rate is elevated but stable. His breathing is controlled. He is managing the pain somehow. That is not possible. The human nervous system should be overwhelming his brain with distress signals. And yet, down in the arena, Vela landed another combination of strikes. Her upper arms hammered at Tejo's guard while her lower arms worked his body. She was hitting him constantly now, unable to understand why he would not go down. Tejo took the hits. Some he blocked with his good arm, others he absorbed with his body, twisting to reduce the impact, letting the force flow through him rather than stopping it cold. It hurt. It hurt more than anything he had ever experienced. But pain was just information. Pain was the body's way of saying something was wrong. He already knew something was wrong. He did not need constant reminders. He had learned this lesson long ago, in the burned-out corridors of Europa Station. When his squad had died, and the enemy kept coming, pain had become a companion rather than an enemy. You could not fight for 11 hours if you let every wound stop you. You had to find a place beyond pain, a place where the body's screaming became background noise. Soldiers called it different things. Some said you went to a dark place. Others talked about finding their center. Tejo did not have words for it. He simply went there when he needed to, and the pain became distant, like thunder from a far-off storm. Vela struck him in the chest and he felt a rib crack. The pain flared bright and hot, then faded into that distant thunder. He kept moving. In the stands, Yuna watched with tears running down her face. She had read Tejo's military file before they left Earth. She knew about Europa Station. She knew about the medal they had given him afterward, and how he had refused to wear it because he said survival was not an achievement. She understood what she was seeing, even if the aliens around her did not. Humans were not built like other species. They did not have the raw strength of Rethians, or the armored bodies of Krix. They could not regenerate like Telvans, or enter healing trances like Mordians. By galactic standards, they were fragile and weak, but they had something else. Something that millions of years of evolution had burned into their genes. Humans were persistence predators, long ago. Before technology, before civilization, humans had hunted by chasing their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They could not outrun a deer or overpower a boar, but they could follow it, hour after hour, mile after mile, never stopping, never resting, until the animal's body simply gave out. That was what made humans different. Not strength, not speed, not special abilities, just the simple, terrible capacity to keep going. When everything said they should stop, the Rethians had never needed this ability. They evolved as ambush predators, striking fast and hard, ending fights before they truly began. Their bodies were built for explosive power, not sustained effort. Their 4 hearts could pump massive amounts of blood for short periods, but they burned energy at an incredible rate. Vela was beginning to feel this now, though she did not yet understand it. Her breathing was heavier than it should be. Her arms felt slightly slower than before, She had been fighting at maximum intensity for 15 minutes, something she had never needed to do. She told herself it did not matter. The human was clearly damaged. He could not possibly last much longer. One more good strike, and he would finally fall. She attacked again, putting all her power into a devastating combination. Her fists connected with his blocking arm, his shoulder, his ribs. She heard something crack. She saw him stagger backward, almost losing his balance, but he did not fall. Instead, he looked at her with those steady dark eyes and said nothing. There was no anger in his gaze, no desperation, no plea for mercy. There was only patience, only endurance, only the absolute refusal to stop. In the medical observation room, the Crix medic made a sound of realization. I understand now. Look at his physiology compared to hers. His energy consumption is perhaps 1/5 of hers. His single heart is working efficiently while her 4 hearts are approaching strain levels. She is burning herself out. She is burning herself out. The Telvan physician shook his head. But her damage output is enormous. How much more can he absorb? I do not know. No one knows. That is what makes humans dangerous. The Crix paused, studying the data. They do not know their own limits. Or perhaps they do not have limits the way we understand them. In the arena, Vela attacked again. And again. And again. And Tejo kept standing. His body was a map of damage now. His left arm was definitely broken. His face was swollen and bleeding. His movements were slower, more careful, clearly painful. By any medical standard she understood, he should be unconscious. He should be dying, but his eyes were still clear. His mind was still that empty room, and somewhere deep inside him, in a place that had been forged through 15 years of war and suffering and loss, a simple truth burned like an unquenchable fire. He was not going to stop, not until his body physically failed, not until his heart stopped beating, not until there was nothing left to give. And Vela, for all her strength and speed and psychic power, was beginning to realize that she might break before he did. The number hung in the air like something impossible. No fight against Commander Vela had ever lasted more than 3 minutes. Most ended in less than 1. Yet here she was, still fighting, still trying to bring down an opponent who had no right to be standing. Tejo watched her through eyes that were starting to swell from the damage. His body screamed at him from a dozen different places. The broken rib made breathing painful. The damaged arm hung useless at his side. Blood dripped steadily from cuts on his face and body, leaving a trail wherever he moved. But he was also watching something else, something the crowd had not noticed yet. Vela was slowing down. It was small at first, a tiny delay between her combinations, a slight heaviness in her lower arms, a pattern of breathing that was becoming more ragged. To someone who did not know what to look for, it would be invisible. Tejo knew what to look for. He had spent his entire military career learning to read opponents, learning to find the moment when the fight could change. This was that moment. Vela attacked again, but there was less force behind her strikes than before. Her 4 hearts were pumping desperately, trying to supply enough oxygen to her straining muscles. But Rethian physiology was not built for this. Her people had evolved to end fights quickly. 20 minutes of sustained combat was burning through her energy reserves at an unsustainable rate. She did not understand what was happening. How could she? No opponent had ever survived long enough for her to experience this. She had trained for power and speed and overwhelming force. She had never trained for endurance. She had never needed to. Tejo saw her confusion. He saw the first flicker of uncertainty in those black eyes, and he began to move forward. The crowd stirred. Something was changing. The human who had been backing up, absorbing punishment, bleeding from countless wounds, was now advancing. His steps were slow and careful, but they were steps forward. Vela threw a combination with her upper arms. Tejo blocked it with his good arm and stepped inside her reach. His fist connected with the joint, where her lower right arm connected to her torso. It was not a powerful strike by galactic standards, but it was precise. She grunted and pulled back. That joint was a weak point, a place where the armor of muscle and bone was thinner. How had he known? He had known because he had been watching. For 20 minutes, while she beat him bloody, he had been studying her body, learning where the weaknesses were, waiting for the chance to use that knowledge. She attacked again, but he was inside her rhythm now. He slipped her strikes and landed another blow to the same joint, then another to the matching joint on her other side. Her lower arms began to respond more slowly, the damage accumulating. In the stands, Yuna had stopped crying. She was leaning forward, hands gripping the seat in front of her, watching with wide eyes. An elderly Rethian scholar sat nearby with several of his colleagues. He had been watching the fight with growing interest, taking notes on a datapad. Now he turned to the others and spoke in a quiet voice. "We have made a terrible mistake," he said. "We measured humans by our own standards. Strength, speed, psychic ability. By those measurements, they are nothing special." "What do you mean?" one colleague asked. "We never measured their persistence, their capacity to endure damage and continue functioning, their ability to think clearly while suffering extreme pain." He gestured toward the arena. "Look at him. He should have collapsed long ago. Instead, he has been waiting, learning, preparing for this moment." Down below, Tejo continued his slow advance. His strikes were not meant to cause massive damage. They were meant to accumulate, to wear down, to chip away at his opponent piece by piece. Vela tried to rally. She reached deep inside herself, calling on reserves of energy she did not know she had. Her attacks became faster again, more desperate. She landed several solid hits that made Tejo stagger, but she could not maintain it. Her body was simply not designed for this kind of extended effort. Within minutes, she was flagging again, her movements becoming slower and heavier, and Tejo was still standing, still moving forward, still watching her with those patient, steady eyes. The betting screens around the arena had gone dark. The odds were shifting so rapidly that the systems could not keep up. What had started as a certain victory was becoming something else entirely. Vela landed a strike to Tejo's already damaged ribs. She heard another crack. He bent over, gasping, clearly in tremendous pain. This was it. This had to be it. No creature could take this much damage and continue. He straightened up. Blood was flowing from his mouth now. Something was badly wrong inside him. But he raised his good arm into a fighting position and waited. "Why?" Vela gasped out. "Why won't you fall?" Tejo did not answer. He simply stepped forward again. She threw a punch with her upper right arm. He caught it with his good hand. For a moment, they stood there, locked together. She pushed, trying to overpower him with her superior strength. He held firm, every muscle in his body straining against her. Then she felt something she had never felt before in combat. Her arm began to shake, not from effort, from exhaustion, and she understood, finally, what she was facing. This human was not trying to defeat her with power. He was trying to outlast her. He was absorbing her best attacks, weathering the storm, waiting for her body to fail. It was brilliant. It was terrible. And it was working. "My people have hunted this way for 1,000,000 years, Tejo said quietly. "We follow. We endure. We wait. And eventually, our prey falls." Vela's arm gave out. Tejo's fist connected with her face. It was the first clean hit he had landed in the entire fight. And suddenly, impossibly, the champion was stumbling backward. 50,000 spectators were on their feet, screaming in 100 different languages. The sound was deafening, a wall of noise that seemed to shake the very structure of the station. They had come expecting entertainment. What they were witnessing was something that would change the galaxy. Commander Vela stumbled backward, her hand touching her face where the human's fist had connected. Blue blood stained her fingers. Her blood. No opponent had drawn her blood in over 200 matches. Tejo did not press his advantage immediately. He could not. His body was failing in ways he could feel with every heartbeat. The broken ribs had punctured something inside him. His left arm was completely useless. His vision was starting to blur at the edges from blood loss and pain, but he was still standing. And for the first time, Vela was not. In the medical observation room, the doctors had abandoned their professional distance. They were pressed against the viewing window, watching with open amazement. His adrenaline levels are beyond anything I have ever recorded, the Telvan physician said. His body is dumping emergency chemicals into his bloodstream. He should not be able to think clearly with this much stress hormone in his system. He is not just thinking clearly, the Krix medic replied. He is fighting strategically. Look at how he targeted her arm joints. Look at how he is managing his remaining energy. This is not a mindless survival response. This is calculation. How is that possible? The Krix was quiet for a moment. I have studied human military history. They call it battle calm. Some of their warriors can access a state of mind where pain and fear become distant, where the body's warnings are received but not obeyed. It was considered a myth until now. Down in the arena, Vela straightened up and faced her opponent again. Her black eyes showed something they had never shown before: recognition. She was seeing Tejo clearly for the first time, not as a weak creature to be destroyed, but as something far more dangerous. What are you? She asked. Tejo smiled. It was a terrible expression, his face covered in blood and swelling. I am human. She attacked again, but the explosive power that had marked her earlier assault was gone. Her arms moved at perhaps half their original speed. Her strikes, while still dangerous, no longer carried the force to break bones with single blows. And Tejo was ready. He slipped her first combination and landed a strike to her ribs. He blocked her second attack and countered with a knee to her thigh. Each movement was precise, economical, aimed at the places where his earlier strikes had already caused damage. He was not trying to hurt her. He was trying to disable her. The crowd was chanting now, though Tejo could not understand the words. It did not matter. He was not fighting for them. He was not fighting for glory or honor, or to prove anything about his species. He was fighting because that was what he knew how to do. He was fighting because somewhere, in the depths of his exhausted mind, the boy who had grown up in the ruins of a war-torn colony was still trying to survive. Vela threw a desperate combination with all four arms. Tejo could not dodge it completely. Two of the strikes connected, one to his chest and one to his shoulder. The pain was immense. He heard something crack inside him. His vision went white for a moment, but his body had already moved to counter. Years of training had made the response automatic. His good arm struck out even as he absorbed the damage, and his fist connected with the same spot on her face he had hit before. Vela's head snapped back. She staggered again. This time, her legs did not want to support her. In the stands, the elderly Rethian scholar had stopped taking notes. He was watching with something like wonder on his ancient face. They are not the strongest species, he said, more to himself than to his colleagues. They are not the fastest or the most gifted. Their technology is not remarkable. Their psychic abilities are non-existent. Then how is this happening? Someone asked. Because none of those things matter against this. He pointed at the human in the arena. He is broken, bleeding, dying, perhaps, and he will not stop. He has decided that he will not stop. And that decision overrides everything else. His body screams at him to fall, and he refuses. His instincts beg him to run, and he ignores them. He shook his head slowly. We evolved to be the perfect predators. Quick kills. Overwhelming force. We never developed the ability to endure because we never needed it. But humans... He paused, searching for words. Humans evolved on a world where endurance was everything, where survival meant continuing long after hope was gone. They do not know how to quit. They have no instinct for surrender. The fight continued below. Both warriors were exhausted now, moving slowly, trading blows that lacked their earlier power. But where Vela's movements showed the sluggishness of a body pushed beyond its design limits, Tejo's showed something different. He was finding rhythm. It was subtle. Something only experienced fighters would notice. Despite his injuries, despite the pain that must be overwhelming, His movements were becoming smoother, more controlled. His body was adjusting to its new limitations, finding ways to compensate for the damage. This was what millions of years of evolution had given humanity. Not strength, not speed, not special powers, just the ability to adapt, to endure, to keep going when every rational calculation said to stop. Vela swung at him with her upper arms. He caught both strikes on his forearm, wincing at the impact but holding firm. Then he stepped inside her reach and delivered 3 quick strikes to her midsection. She doubled over, gasping for breath. Her 4 hearts were racing dangerously now, struggling to keep up with demands her body could no longer meet. The fight had lasted 30 minutes, and for the first time, Tejo was winning. Vela rose from where Tejo's strikes had bent her over. She stood on legs that trembled with exhaustion. Her blue skin had turned a darker shade, a sign of oxygen deprivation, as her overworked hearts struggled to keep up. Her 4 arms hung heavy at her sides, no longer the deadly weapons they had been at the fight's beginning. She had never felt like this. Never known her body could feel like this. The sensation was strange and terrible, like being trapped inside a machine that was slowly failing. The human stood before her, waiting. He looked worse than she did by any visible measure. His face was a mask of blood and swelling. His left arm dangled uselessly. His breathing came in short, painful gasps that suggested serious internal damage. He should have been dead 10 times over by now. But his eyes were still clear, still watching, still patient. "You will not win," Vela said. The words came out weaker than she intended. "Even if you defeat me, you will die from your injuries." Tejo considered this for a moment. Then he spoke, his voice rough, but steady. "Maybe. My people have a saying, it is not about how hard you can hit, it is about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward." He raised his good arm into a fighting position. The movement was slow, clearly painful, but there was no hesitation in it. "I do not understand you," Vela admitted. "I have fought dozens of species. I have faced warriors who could crush steel with their hands, and warriors who could kill with a thought. None of them have ever done what you are doing." "What am I doing?" "Refusing to accept reality." She gestured at his broken body. "You cannot win this fight. Your body is destroyed, yet you continue. Why?" Tejo was quiet for a long moment. The arena around them was silent too. 50,000 beings waiting to hear his answer. "On Europa Station," he finally said, "my entire squad died in the first hour. The enemy kept coming. I was alone in a corridor with a broken leg and a weapon that was running out of power. I knew I could not win. I knew I would probably die." He took a step forward. Vela did not step back. "But I also knew that if I stopped fighting, the civilians behind me would die. Children, families, people who could not defend themselves." His voice grew harder. "So I decided that I would not stop. Not until my body failed completely. Not until there was nothing left. And you survived. For 11 hours. Until rescue came." He showed her his bloody teeth in something like a smile. "My body failed many times that night. My mind never did." Vela felt something shift inside her. It was not a physical sensation. It was something deeper. A crack in the foundation of everything she had believed about combat and strength and victory. She had spent her life becoming the perfect warrior. She had trained her body to incredible levels of power and speed. She had honed her psychic abilities until she could read most opponents like open books. She had believed that these things were what made a fighter great, but this human had none of those advantages. He was weaker than her, slower than her, completely blind to psychic perception. By every measurement she had ever learned, he was inferior, and he was beating her. Not with power, not with skill, not with any special ability. He was beating her with something she had no counter for, something her people had never developed because they had never needed it. The pure, terrible will to continue. She attacked. It was not her best effort. Her arms moved through patterns that had become instinct over decades of training. But there was no strength behind them. No speed. Just motion. Taeho blocked one strike, absorbed another, slipped a third. Then he stepped forward and drove his fist into her chest. The blow was not powerful by any standard. But she was exhausted, her defenses down, her body running on empty. She stumbled backward, nearly falling. "Stop," she gasped. "I am finished. You have won." Taeho lowered his arm. For a moment, they simply stood there. Two broken warriors at the end of an impossible fight. "No," he said. "Not yet." He raised his arm again. Vela stared at him in disbelief. "I am surrendering. The fight is over. You have not yielded. You have not fallen. The fight continues until one of us cannot stand." His bloody face showed no anger, no triumph, just that endless patience. "I have learned that the moment you think you are defeated is rarely the moment the fight actually ends. Your body has more to give. It always does." She understood then. This was not cruelty. This was not ego. This was simply how he had survived all those years. By never accepting that the fight was over, by pushing beyond every limit, again and again, until there truly was nothing left. Vela reached inside herself, searching for something more. Some reserve of energy she had not yet tapped. She found it. Barely. A small pool of strength she had not known existed. She attacked one final time. The combination was slower than her first attacks, but it was still dangerous. Taeho blocked what he could and absorbed the rest. He felt more things break inside him. His vision narrowed to a tunnel focused entirely on her. But he had seen this attack before. He knew its patterns now. And when her arms dropped from exhaustion, unable to continue the sequence, he stepped forward. His fist connected with her temple. It was a simple strike, clean, precise, aimed at a spot that would end the fight without causing permanent damage. Commander Vela, undefeated champion of the Rethian Empire, fell to the arena floor. She did not get up. The arena was silent for 3 heartbeats. Then it exploded into noise. Taeho stood alone in the center of the fighting floor, surrounded by the screams of 50,000 spectators. He swayed on his feet, his body finally giving in to the damage it had sustained. He could feel himself fading, the world growing dark at the edges. But he did not fall. Not yet. He had to stay standing, just a little longer. Medical teams rushed onto the floor. Strong hands caught him as his legs finally gave out. Voices shouted in languages he did not understand. Machines beeped and hummed as they began assessing his injuries. The last thing he saw before consciousness left him was Yuna's face, tears streaming down her cheeks, her mouth forming words he could not hear. He closed his eyes and let the darkness take him. He had won. He was lying in a medical bed, his body wrapped in bandages and connected to a dozen different devices. The pain was distant, muted by whatever drugs they had given him. He could feel his heartbeat, slow and steady, and took comfort in that simple rhythm. "You are awake." He turned his head slowly. Yuna sat in a chair beside his bed, her eyes red from crying but her face showing relief. She looked like she had not slept in days. "How long?" he asked. His voice came out as a croak. 3 days. The doctors were not sure you would survive." She reached out and took his hand. "You broke 4 ribs. Your left arm has 2 fractures. You have internal bleeding, a punctured lung, and more bruises than they could count. They said they have never seen a human sustain this much damage and live." Taeho tried to smile, but was not sure if his face could make the expression anymore. "I feel wonderful. I feel wonderful. You are an idiot." But she was smiling too, the kind of smile that comes after terrible fear has finally passed. They sat in silence for a while. Taeho could hear activity outside his room. Voices and footsteps, and the occasional announcement over a speaker system. The station seemed busier than he remembered. "What happened?" he asked. "After the fight?" Yuna's expression changed. Something complicated moved across her face. "Everything changed. The footage of your fight has been viewed billions of times across known space. Scientists from 100 species are writing papers about human physiology. Diplomatic delegations that ignored Earth for decades are suddenly requesting meetings. Because I won a fight? Because you showed them something they did not expect. She squeezed his hand. They thought we were weak, fragile, unimportant. You showed them what we really are. Tejo thought about this. He had not fought for politics or diplomacy. He had fought because there was a fight, and fighting was what he knew how to do. The idea that his survival had larger meaning felt strange. There is someone who wants to see you, Yuna continued. If you feel strong enough. Before he could answer, the door opened. A Rethian woman entered, moving slowly and carefully. Her skin was paler than it should be, and she walked with the cautious steps of someone still recovering from injury. Commander Vela. Yuna stood quickly, but Vela raised one of her hands in a peaceful gesture. I am not here to fight. I am here to talk. Tejo studied her. Without the energy of combat, without the arena lights and the screaming crowd, she looked different. Still tall. Still alien. But somehow, more real, more like a person rather than an opponent. Talk then, he said. Vela approached his bed slowly. When she reached him, she stood there for a moment, looking down at him with those black eyes. Then, to his surprise, she bowed her head. I underestimated your species, she said. We all did. We measured you by our standards and found you lacking. We never considered that you might have standards of your own. Ones we could not understand. Tejo said nothing. He simply waited. I have fought many opponents, killed many. But I have never faced anyone who looked at certain defeat and saw only another obstacle to overcome. She paused, searching for words. Your body was destroyed. Every logical analysis said you should fall. But you simply refused. I did not know that was possible. It is not unique to me, Tejo said. Any human can do what I did. We are built for it. That is what frightens me. Vela's voice was quiet. I am one of the strongest warriors my people have ever produced. And you beat me, not with strength, but with stubbornness. What happens when your entire species decides to be stubborn about something? The question hung in the air. Tejo thought about human history. The wars. The disasters. The countless times when people had been told something was impossible and had done it anyway. The times when surrender would have been easier, when giving up would have made logical sense, and humans had simply refused. I do not know, he admitted. We do not always use our persistence for good things. We can be stubborn about the wrong ideas just as easily as the right ones. But you can be stubborn about the right ones too. Yes, Vela nodded slowly. Your species is not the strongest, the fastest, or the most gifted. But you may be the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Why? Because you do not stop. She looked at him with something that might have been respect. When you want something, you simply keep going until you get it, or until you die. There is no middle ground, no negotiation with your own limits. She paused. I have never encountered anything like that before. Tejo thought about this for a long moment. Then he spoke. My grandmother used to say that the tree that bends in the storm survives when the rigid one breaks. We are not the strongest trees, but we bend very well. Vela considered these words. Then she did something unexpected. She extended one of her upper hands toward him. Tejo looked at the offered hand. Then, slowly and painfully, he raised his good arm and grasped it. Her grip was gentle, careful of his injuries. I will not forget what you have shown me, she said. And I will make sure my people do not forget either. The humans are not to be overlooked. Not anymore. She released his hand and turned to leave. At the door, she paused and looked back. Will you fight in the tournament again? When you have healed? Tejo thought about it. His body would take months to recover, maybe longer. The pain that waited when the drugs wore off would be tremendous, but he was human. Pain was just information. Limits were just suggestions. Ask me in a year, he said. Vela smiled, a strange expression on her alien face. Then, she was gone. Yuna reclaimed her seat beside his bed. That was unexpected. Yes, she respects you now. Yes. Tejo closed his eyes. But it was not respect I wanted. I just wanted to survive. You did more than survive. You changed things. People will look at humans differently now. Maybe. Sleep was pulling at him. The drugs and exhaustion combining to drag him down. Or maybe they will just find new reasons to underestimate us. It does not matter. We will keep going either way. Yuna watched him drift off to sleep. Through the window of his room, she could see ships arriving and departing from the station's ports. Word of the fight was still spreading across the galaxy. Everything had changed. She thought about what Vela had said. The most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Not because of weapons or powers or special abilities, but because of something much simpler. Humans did not know how to give up. Outside, the stars burned in the endless darkness, and somewhere among them, a small blue planet continued its orbit around an ordinary sun. Its people had taken their first steps into a vast and dangerous universe, and the universe was finally beginning to understand what that meant.